Hey, welcome. Today I'll be reviewing GHOSTWIRE Tokyo. Now this is a game that unfortunately got overshadowed by Elden Ring since it was released 2-3 weeks after Elden Ring was released. So that's kinda unfortunate, and a lot of people haven't given it a try, which is unfortunate since the game is actually a lot of fun. This is the second time I'm doing a non-professional review, you might call it. Well, whatever. Let's begin with the most important thing in my opinion, the gameplay and mechanics. Now, in this game, you've got powers. They're called ethereal weaving, and you've got 3 element weavings. You've got wind weaving, which is a fast attack that you can do, and you can also charge it and shoot 2 or 3 of this same attack. It's like basic shooting, but made really cool. Now, before I mention the other weavings, let me tell you, these powers are one of the things that really make the game stand out. Well, then we've got water weaving. Water weaving is basically a close range attack that is like a blade. It's not really good, it's not my favorite, absolutely. It's probably the one that I like the least. After that, we've got the one that does the most damage, the fire weaving. This is a powerful fire attack that if you charge up, it becomes a fireball. It's really cool, but you don't have a lot of capacity for it. Yeah, in this game we've got capacity. For the wind weaving it's like 30 or a bit more. For water weaving it's like 10, and for fire weaving it's like 5, which is not a lot. Since you gotta find ether particles to charge up your abilities. Ether particles are found in the world when you just look around. It's not really hard. Also, when you kill enemies, I believe they also give you ether particles. You get ether particles from corrupted objects. I think there's something like that. Like they just float around and you can punch them to get ether. Oh yeah, you can also punch things and enemies. That doesn't do a lot of damage. Now, the way to finish enemies off is when you grab their cores. Now, when you do enough damage to enemies, their cores get exposed. Cores are basically like their hearts, and you need to grab them by holding your mouse for like a second. The animation on that is really cool. It's one of my most favorite things. You can also do a bunch of damage to a couple of enemies and extract their cores at the same time, and it makes for a really nice combo. Then I wanted to mention something that is talismans. Something that I really didn't use a lot. I mean, talismans, I didn't really like them. You've got the stun talisman that stuns enemies, basically. Then you've got something interesting, which is the talisman that places something, like a bush, and you can hide from enemies. This really helps with stealth, but I absolutely never used it. I kind of forgot that it existed, plus I didn't really need it, come on. Now in this game you've got the option to fight enemies straight on, which is with these powers that you have. But you can also decide to be stealthy in a lot of situations. It's actually encouraged in a bunch of missions. You sometimes lose your power because of some things that happen in the story, and you're forced to be stealthy. You have the option to crouch, which is basically sneaking, and you can get behind enemies and extract their cores without them seeing you. Now, this is really cool. This is basically something that you would call an assassination in other games. To help you with stealth, you've got a bow. This is something cool. Like, I didn't used to use the bow a lot in the beginning, but then I found out a way to get more arrows. That was really helpful, and I started to use the bow a lot. Whenever I could, I used it. Since it's better than just fighting enemies straight on. So, you've got the option to fight enemies straight on, and you've got the option to be stealthy. But you can also run away. In a lot of situations, you can just not fight anything. You can run right past enemies. I mean, they will notice you and they will chase you quite a lot. This is something I've noticed. They chase you for a long time, but they can't exactly get to you if you don't stop. So running away is also a viable option. To help you with head-on fighting, you've got a cool ability called wiring that you get after like 2 or 3 hours of playing. It's a very cool ability that boosts all of your damage and has this area of effect aura that it gives off the second you activate the ability that does a lot of damage. I think you get a little faster and it recharges your ether on all your abilities. It's very cool. The first time I saw it, I was blown away, okay? For some reason though, I didn't use it too much. Like I only ever used it like 4 times, 5 times maybe. Oh yeah, another cool thing you've got is gliding. You can glide from building to building. You've got those cool ass things, I don't know how to describe them. They're called Tengu, that are flying around and you can grapple to them. That was something awesome since, you know, I've seen grappling techniques before, but I've never seen something like Tengu flying around that you can grapple to. So yeah, you have the option to go from building to building after you grapple onto a Tengu, since most of the Tengu are pretty high up. Something I forgot to mention is spectral vision. You've got spectral vision, which is basically seeing everything around you, like seeing where enemies are, seeing objects that you might need. It's something very useful for stealth, and also if you just run around, since you can discover a lot of things with it. Now we've got the skill tree or the upgrade tree, however you wanna call it. Here you can upgrade your abilities, your ethereal weaving, and your equipment. In the ability section, you can upgrade your spectral vision range, your glide duration, your wiring duration. You can even upgrade your sneaking, you know, you get faster sneaking. You can upgrade core exposure duration, core grab speed, which is cool if you wanna do a lot of combos and things. You can even get a melee core grab. I haven't upgraded that, but seems cool. Something I forgot to mention as well is you can block, and when you make a perfect block, you take no damage and it seems like you damage the enemy and they don't move for like a second or two and you can do damage to them. You can even upgrade the core grab HP restoration and some other things. In the ethereal weaving section, you can upgrade your wind weaving, water weaving and fire weaving. For the wind weaving, you can upgrade the speed of your attacks, which is wow, it's really cool. And you can also upgrade the wind weaving charged attack and it gives you more shots. So at level 1 it gives you 2 shots when you do a charge attack with the wind weaving. At level 2 it gives you 3 shots, and at level 4 it gives you 4 shots. I meant at level 3 it gives you 4 shots, but yeah, you know. For the water weaving you can upgrade it so that you get more shots, enables you to fire 2 shots at level 2 and 3 shots at level 3. You can also upgrade the charge attack width, which is useful I guess. I didn't use the water weaving a lot, so I didn't bother too much with it. For the fire weaving you can upgrade its piercing. It can pierce through one enemy at level 1 and it can pierce through multiple enemies as well as objects and shields at level 2. And for the charged fire attack it upgrades its radius, which is wow, you get a big ass fireball if you upgrade it a lot. Then you've got another section in the ethereal weaving, which is the charge attack section. This is the first thing I upgraded. It gives you charge attack speed boost. It shortens the charge time for charged ethereal weaving attacks. I thought it's very useful. I believe it's very useful. In the equipment section, it's mostly upgrading your capacity to things that you can have. I'm talking about the talisman capacity. You can upgrade that. You can upgrade your quiver, which is where you store your arrows. You can have more of that if you like. Also you've got the bow speed boost, which is basically increasing the bow draw speed, which I think is useless. You have more than enough time to pull out your bow when you're sneaking, so I don't see a point to that. Something I forgot to mention is that this game has prayer beads, they call them. This is basically an RPG element where you collect those beads and they give you like attack boosts to different things, or maybe some other boosts. Like you can get more attack damage to wind weaving, fire weaving, water weaving, those things, which is good, but it's really not the main focus of the game. You can get extra sets from the equipment section for the prayer beads, you know, and you also get a capacity boost for consumables. Now, I believe the way to heal in this game is only through consumables. I'm talking about food. Consumables is basically food. You've got 2 types of food. Your normal food that just gives you health, and your special food that gives you a boost as well, like something like a 10% defense boost or a 10% attack boost for a little bit of time. So yeah, that's the only way to heal, I think, if I hadn't seen another one. Now let's talk about the enemies, or the visitors, however you wanna call them. Now there's a lot of them, let me tell you that. I really love that there's a bunch of types of enemies in this game, and they're pretty much all very creative. Like, I haven't seen them in other games, at least most of them. They look very cool, you know. So the most basic enemies are the rainwalkers. They are dudes with umbrellas that they sometimes use as shields. They kinda looks like Slenderman, quite easy to kill. Then you've got the fat rainwalkers, which again, dudes that look like Slenderman and have umbrellas, but are fat and they have more health. After that I can remember this girl with an umbrella and a machete. She wasn't that easy to kill, she attacks quite fast as well. After that there are those high school boys and girls, I call them. Well, they're quite easy to kill, like they don't have a lot of health, but they're quite agile for some reason, and if they hit you, they do a bunch of damage that you won't expect. But most of the time they don't get the opportunity to hit you since they're quite low health. Then I can remember something that was like a mini boss that was an even bigger fat Slenderman with a hammer. Yeah, he's not easy to kill, let me tell you. Then you've got the enraged walker. These guys are basically the fat Slenderman, but they're enraged. They're harder to kill. Then there's the paper dolls and marionettes. The paper dolls aren't that hard to kill, but I feel like the marionettes are a little bit harder. I believe one or the other heals the enemies whenever they take damage, so it's best to focus them first when you fight. Then we've got the enemy they call Shine Dancer. I really hate that thing. I fought him like 2 or 3 times. They're quite hard to kill since they're in the air, and they're really agile as well. It dodges quite a lot. After that we've got the Lamentation, another one that I hate. It's very hard to kill if you fight it straight on. It does a lot of damage. I believe it can kill you in 2 or 3 shots. After that we've got those yellow kids with umbrellas. Now they're quite easy to kill if you manage to sneak up behind them, but if you don't sneak up behind them, they literally summon a whole army against you, and it sucks to fight them. After that we've got ghosts called Wanderers. They're really easy to kill with a bow. Whenever I see them, I use a bow and get them one by one. I don't believe they do a lot of damage, and even if you use wind weaving or something like that, they're like, with wind weaving, you need 3 shots to kill them. They're probably the easiest enemy in the game. Then we've got this lady with the scissors. She was a mini boss. Isn't easy to kill, since you see her a little later on as well. Then we've got this ice wizard thing that was really hard to kill. It was again a mini boss that is found later on in the story, but it was quite hard to kill. But it was quite fun to fight it, not gonna lie. After that I wanted to talk about the main story boss fights as well. I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'm just going to say that the boss fights were quite amazing. Like the first boss fight, I thought that it's quite meh, but in the second one they introduced a lot of interesting things that I hadn't seen in other boss fights. The design to every boss was quite great, and also to every normal enemy as well. The designs to those enemies are awesome. Something that is one of my favorite things in the game actually. Well, now we can move on to the next section. The length of the game, for me, was 9 hours. But I checked on how long to beat, and for the average player, it's about 11 hours. And if you want to complete the game 100% with collectibles, it will probably take you around 30 to 40 hours. That's a lot for a game that you can finish in 10 hours. But since the game is open world, you can find a lot of things, and there's also a lot of side missions as well. The game was produced by Tango Gameworks, who are best known for their The Evil Within games, and it was published by Bethesda, who you've probably heard of because of games like Skyrim, Dishonored, Doom, Fallout, yeah, a lot of great games. It was released on the 25th of March 2022. Now, since the game is open world, I wanted to talk about the world design. Since you know the game is based in Tokyo, it's got beautiful Asian aesthetics that I really love for some reason. They've made them so well. Whenever I play games that are based in Asia, I just love it so much. It's very beautiful, that's what I can tell you. Now for the open world aspects. You've got something that is basically a collectible, but also you need it for leveling up, called spirits, that are scattered around the whole city, and you gotta find them and collect them in your katashiro, and then put them in a phone booth, and you get XP and you level up. This is basically the whole point of the spirits, but it's something I hadn't seen in other games. You find them quite a lot, and there's a ton of them. Like, you gotta find a lot if you want to 100% complete the game. Like I said, the spirits are quite creative and really fit the game. Like any other open world game, you've got your side missions. This is something I really didn't dive in. Like, I did one side mission and it was by mistake. I don't think you really need to play those side missions for anything. I don't think they're that entertaining. But I guess you can give it a try if you want. Now you've got your gates. Those are basically the towers that you would find in Far Cry or Assassin's Creed or any other Ubisoft game out there, you know. Or basically any other open world game. I'm not a huge fan of those, but they don't really force you to do them. There's only a few gates that you need to do for your main missions, and the other ones are completely optional. Also, whenever you cleanse a gate, you get one of those prayer beads that I mentioned earlier. Here you've got a lot of different stores and machines that you can buy things from. I'm talking about food. You can also buy talismans from the stores. You can buy arrows. That's how I found out that I can buy arrows, and that's when I started to use the bow quite a lot. Yeah, like I said, you can also buy food from the machines. You can buy drinks. This is something that I've probably seen in only one other game, and it's also a game that I compared to GHOSTWIRE Tokyo for some reasons, and I'm talking about Sleeping Dogs. Now, this is a GTA copy, and it's pretty much got nothing to do with the combat and anything else. I'm talking about the design. Since it's also based in Asia, it's based in Hong Kong. I also compare the aesthetics quite a lot to Sleeping Dogs. It really reminds me of that game. Also, the stores and the machines. Yeah, Sleeping Dogs got something like that as well. Also, you've got statues that give you more capacity to your ethereal weaving. You've got something similar in Sleeping Dogs as well. But yeah, enough about Sleeping Dogs. Then you've got something interesting, that is cat requests. There's those cats scattered around the area that you can see on your map, and they have certain requests for you. You find collectibles around the world, and whenever you find them, you bring them to one of the cats and they give you money for it. I find that quite cool. And each and every cat's got their own shop. I haven't really looked into that a lot, but I've noticed it. Now let's talk about cutscenes. Now, I had a huge problem with cutscenes. In my first 30 minutes of playing, I noticed that the cutscenes had a lot of delay in them. Like, I hear the audio and what's going on, but there's nothing going on. Like, the game freezes. And I searched that up and saw that there's a lot of people that have this problem, and I believe it's because of the PC port. I don't think it's going to happen on PlayStation or Xbox, but seems like the fix to this was lowering my resolution to 1080p. I usually play on 4K, but I had to lower it on 1080p just to follow the cutscenes. That was really unfortunate. I mean, I wanted to play the game on 4K, I wanted the full graphical experience I could have gotten, but it is what it is, I guess. Hopefully they fix it in the future. Now, something else about the cutscenes is that in the beginning, in like the first few chapters, there wasn't a lot of cutscenes, but then near the end it started picking up with a ton of cutscenes, and in the last 2 chapters it was basically more cutscenes than gameplay, which is actually pretty cool for the storytelling, since I believe they were quite necessary. Like, those cutscenes made me love the characters even more. Now, the game language default is actually set to Japanese. You have the complete option to change it to English, but I decided to stick with the Japanese since it's going to boost the whole experience of being in Tokyo. And also, I'm an anime enjoyer, so that's also another reason. I just love Japanese voices a lot. But yeah, I had subtitles on, which was a bit of a problem since I couldn't follow the subtitles whenever I was fighting. Also about that, there was a lot of dialogue between the 2 main characters, talking about between Akito and KK. Now, one of the things that I love the most about this game is its atmosphere. It was absolutely out of this world. This game is also a thriller, so that's probably one of the reasons why it had such great atmosphere. Sometimes I couldn't even say anything because I was so into the game. I can remember that especially in one of the missions that was really close to the end. I was just listening to everything that was going on, looking around. I kept everything in the video since I believe everybody should experience the atmosphere that mission had. Also, before that, in like the beginning and in the middle of the game, there was a lot of weird scenes that were going on. Again, that's probably because of the thriller part of the game. I really enjoyed those. Like, they were really good and unexpected at times. Also, the music, it was very good, and it also helped about the atmosphere. It really boosted it even more. Well, the graphics. They took a huge hit because of the 1080p that they had to play on because of the cutscene bug. That was really unfortunate again. I believe it had a huge potential. But also, if I was playing on max graphics on 4K, I believe my PC would have blown up. So I was playing on medium graphics on 1080p. The full potential of those graphics is really amazing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to experience it. Now, let's move to the other section, which is characters and story. First up, we've got Akito. Akito is the main character. He's a decently likable guy. Then we've got KK. He's the spirit that possessed Akito. After that, we've got Mari. Mari is Akito's little sister and the main goal of Akito. Mari is in a hospital and Akito wants to save her. Then we've got Rinko. She's an acquaintance of KK. We meet her a little later on, like in the mid part of the game. After that, it's Hanya. Hanya is the main masked guy that you would probably recognize since he is in the cover art for the game. His design is awesome, yeah, I really like it. Since I don't want to spoil the game, I missed a bunch of things about those characters, but if you'd like, you can find out more about them. Now for the story. I'm going to tell you the synopsis of it. The game takes place in Tokyo, when all of the city's population has mysteriously vanished. Deadly paranormal visitors have taken over the city, and the player must fight them using ethereal weaving skills and discover the cause of the disappearance. Players take on the role of Akito, a young man who wakes up alone in the streets of Tokyo after a mysterious event hit the city. Akito suddenly realizes that Tokyo is infested with visitors. KK, a spirit, inhabits Akito and both cooperate to battle the evil forces. This is pretty much it for the synopsis. Now, in my opinion, the story starts off quite weak. Like, I wasn't into the story at the beginning, at least. I guess I kinda liked the characters even at the beginning, but it was quite nothing special, you know. But then, the story got better and better, and in the end it ended up a great story. The ending was beautiful, something you don't see in a lot of games. If you want to see more of the game, you should definitely play it yourself or watch my series on the channel. Now I'm going to tell you my conclusion. GHOSTWIRE Tokyo is a great game that is definitely worth checking out. It's got a lot of fun aspects, the story in the end is awesome, and then you've got the amazing out of this world atmosphere. I can't tell you enough how much I like it. I would personally rate it a great 9 out of 10. You should definitely check it out. This was my unprofessional review of GHOSTWIRE Tokyo. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe to see more, and see you next time.